There you go.
Okay, I believe we are streaming now. Great. Okay, thanks, Elliot. All right, gang. Well, sorry for the delay. We'll try to make sure that's resolved before our next meeting, whatever happened there. But welcome to our December 1st, 2023 e-NABLE Town Hall. We have a number of things on the agenda today, including quite a number of posts on the hub that we're going to want to walk through. It looks like, oh gosh, even more. I think
Yeah,
that
there were um other most of them are from a while ago. I think you guys had a speaker at the last town hall, so they probably weren't reviewed. And then there are a few more from the last couple of weeks that I just added.
gotcha. We did kind of a blitz through I believe many of these,
Okay,
but I
so I
think
mean,
that I
if
think it
you
warrants revisiting some because we really gave them short shrift because we didn't have much
yeah,
time the last thing.
I didn't cross them off because I
No
didn't know
problem.
if you had gotten to them or not. So
Yeah, we'll see if anything else requires additional attention. Some of these are people that I reached out to personally um, as follow up, so we will yeah, we'll see what needs to be done still. Well, let me go ahead and share my screen. And hi, Sarah, by the way. How are
hi.
things in your neck of the woods?
Um, I things are okay. Uh John, I was with John this week. We he gave a talk at the Nova School of Science and Technology here in Lisbon on e-NABLE, and we got a tour of the engineering labs here. It was great.
Good. That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah.
Well, that's great. And when is your next travel date? When are you jaunting off next?
Tomorrow I'm going to Senegal and we'll stay there for a while. So
Cool. Awesome. We'll
yeah,
travel safe. Okay.
thank you.
Okie dokie. Let's if there were one thing I wish I knew how to do better on Zooms, it's get rid of this top bar when sharing a screen so I can control the window I'm in. All right. We'll just hop over. Okay, so we've got a number of posts to go through. We're going to be getting an update from Jason a little bit later about some of his efforts in seeking grants and other funding sources. I wanted to talk briefly about a few housekeeping things, and then we'll have some open discussion. I don't think we'll fill the whole hour today, but I also want to make sure that we've got plenty of time to dive into these posts that, again, we glossed over a bit last time. So starting off, we've got an update from Eric Bubar. This is really exciting stuff. So for those who don't know, Eric has, following a proposal that he placed on Lumio, he's been working to build a library of e-NABLE devices on printables. So basically just taking our more popular designs and trying to make the designs that are primarily built by the e-NABLE community a little bit more broadly accessible to people in the printables community. So you just let us know that the e-NABLE printables test account is now live. Those uploaded models are the Kinetican, the Kwawu ARM 3 socket, the Kwawu ARM 3 wrap, and the Nick finger. He'll update as he works with the Prusa research team to tweak and publicize the account. But in short, this is going to be a really nice way to raise e-NABLE's profile while also making these devices maybe a little bit more accessible to folks without having to necessarily be a part of the e-NABLE community, which is great. Any comments or questions here? Okay, let's keep moving through if I can. Good night. Okay, there we go. Alrighty, this was a post for me that we don't need to jump into, but for those who for those who are interested, we had a speaker a couple of weeks ago by the name of Matt Thompson. He's a project manager with Legs for Africa, which is a nonprofit that is philosophically aligned with e-NABLE as well as other organizations. They're a British NGO, and they are just now getting into the 3D printed space to augment some of the services that they provide. Primarily, Legs for Africa refurbishes used prosthetics devices and distributes them across the African continent. I believe I think their biggest presence is in West Africa, here we go, in Sub-Saharan Africa. So there are a number of things that e-NABLE can do if you think that this work is interesting or if you'd like to be involved. They are just now getting into the design and fabrication of these 3D printed foot devices. Looks like Eric Bubar is this his own design? I think this is his own design. Yeah, this is interesting. This looks a little bit different than the foot that Legs for Africa is testing and trialing now. But that looks really cool too. It looks like it's got a lot of like dorsal flexion support. Oh, that's interesting. I'd be interested to see how long that holds up, being what appears to be a single piece. Huh, very cool. Well, anyway, if you're interested and you'd like to get involved in what it is that Legs for Africa does, feel free to either reach out to me or to Matt Thompson, who I believe now has an account on the e-NABLE Hub, and we can get those questions answered there. Otherwise, you can just post on the Hub directly, and we can make sure to jump in. Alrighty, now we're getting into some things that I don't think we covered. This is, and just quick content warning, there's a, this looks like an, oh no, it's just a flower design. I'm sorry, I thought that was blood. But looks like we've got what appears to be a recent-ish amputation. So this is from Michael Golia, someone who's new to the forum. They have an 18-year-old son who was involved in a fire explosion accident. They're an avid hockey player. They're in rehab. Looks like they're looking for assistance with the device, and it looks like the functional terminal device that he's looking for to be able to play hockey is outside of his budget, and insurance is not open to covering things, which is exactly the gap that e-NABLE operates in. So the cosmetic fingers that he's explored won't withstand the rigor of the sport. It's hockey, so I'm not surprised. He's asking if there are any mechanisms, devices that are available that could replicate the function that his son is going to require to engage in sport. And it looks like Thierry jumped on this immediately. Michael states that he's in New York. Eric Bubar jumped in too. Again, noting that the skin looks pretty fresh. Yeah, and he went exactly what I was thinking, that mounting an adaptive device to the stick itself might be a little bit better than thinking about a terminal device for the hand. Well, everyone's, I think, doing exactly what they should, saying that healing needs to take place, so that this is not like an ongoing medical concern. Any comments or questions here while I'm scrolling through this?
Adam, one comment on my end, I'm wondering if, as part of the community outreach here, since this is a fairly newer ask and a newer story to tell, um, wondering the sensitivities of outreach of, hey, if we land on a plan for you all, can we, maybe start with like an initial interview and, start some of the storytelling, or at least send a feeler to see if they would be, ex- you know, if that would be acceptable to them.
Yeah, I think that's an idea. I think that
I I
go ahead, Sarah.
I think we should wait until they uh have um like someone that's committed to making something for them.
Yeah, definitely. That's what
And
I'm getting at when we
I
have like, the actual plan or production starting. And
yeah, no, I no, that would be fine. I definitely wouldn't reach out to before and say, if can we tell your story if we, you
yeah,
know,
sure.
yeah,
Definitely
Yeah. No,
on the same page there.
yeah.
good thoughts all. I think it doesn't look like he's responded for the last 10 days or so. I can reach out to Michael and see if any of this, I mean, he must be, if this is fresh, I'm sure he seems to be very involved and concerned, and understandably so. So I wouldn't be surprised if this were the kind of thing that sort of fell off his radar as a lower priority item. But I'll reach out and see if there's anything that we can do. But I want to say kudos to the community for jumping in and offering some really good insight about how these kinds of things, at least on our end, work. So well done, everyone there. Let's move on to the next. We've got, I believe this is one that we talked about at the last session. This is Natasha Corinda from Brandeis. They're looking to design, manufacture a modified upper limb prosthesis for a child who'd like to participate in sports, preferably between ages 6 and 13. They're in need of a client that's willing to help. And we've got one person who indicated that they need a prosthetic hand, but they are outside of the range that this person is looking for. I don't, we talked about this at the last meeting. This sort of goes back to our core issue here. But I think this is maybe an opportunity for, leveraging some of our new partnerships. Maybe most appropriately would be looking at Ugani and our partners there to see whether or not there is any interest from Natasha in working with someone who may not be local, but would nevertheless need a device like this. Might not be sports, but it may be, I don't know. Yeah. Any additional thoughts? Okay, doke. We'll keep moving on. I'll be sure to reach out to Natasha again. Do. We addressed this last time as well. I believe all the rest of these we ran through. Um, but again, this would be an opportunity to leverage some of our new partnerships in terms of resources for potential recipients or pools of potential recipients. But just checking, this is a person with an assembly event occurring in e-NABLE Toronto. They need a place to actually send the hands. I know what the answer will be, but just top of mind. Anyone have any insight here or fresh ideas? Okay, we'll keep moving on. Patrick, I never, I still haven't been able to get a hold of. He and I had a number of misconnections. We kept trying to reach each other. I'll reach out to him again today to see if he can set up time for a one-on-one in the next week or so ahead of the holidays. And I think from here, I don't think that there's anything else that new attention. Obviously, we had the transition, the migration of the hub. Jeremy, are you aware of any ongoing issues or anything lingering post migration?
I'm not aware of anything. We're still working to clean things up from Azure and get that shut down, but we still have e-NABLE Web Central out there right now, so we kind of have to wait for that new matching platform. But as far as the hub goes, I think Masvi's taking care of that, and it seems like it's all in good shape.
Okay, great. I can give you a quick update. Morgan Rollins is taking charge there. I'm going to be setting up a weekly touch base with her. I think that she has the bandwidth and quite a lot of interest and energy in leading the charge on getting the new website up and running.
Great.
So I am feeling very optimistic about the potential for something getting done there. My apologies for the delay. I've been trying to whip up interest in people who have the capacity to lead that kind of thing, but obviously I don't have the direct skills myself. So my fingers are crossed pretty hard that Morgan will be the one to get this done. But with luck, we'll have some additional updates before the end of the year about where this is going to be going and what that timeline is going to look like. This is done. This we addressed. And this I have reached out to directly, and we talked about it last time. Okay. Well, in that case, let's keep moving along. Jason, would you like to provide a quick update about the state of our new funding?
Yeah, definitely.
Projects?
So we've got a few different irons in the fire. I'll talk about the one that we've been mentioning previously with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I'm sending a feeler out there just for additional information there. Basically, once the application was sent, they said, if you're out of consideration, you would know within 2 weeks. So we're in sort of a no news is good news scenario, but still want to check in on that one because the funding is fairly significant there. We're talking about $300,000 over the course of 3 years was one of their latest examples. We also have some outreach right now to the Draper Richards Kaplan Foundation. This one is a little more of a stretch here, but it's their goal is a transformational paradigm shift to meaningfully address a pressing societal issue affecting people's lives. But once again, this is another significant chunk of funding. You're looking at $100,000 a year for about 3 years. So we set out basically an initial inquiry there. We do have another one in progress. I'm waiting on some paperwork, and I owe a summary to John and ask to Jeremy here. You'll get that in an email today. But Innovating Worthy Projects, they've been doing smaller grants for about $9,000, and their main goal is innovative ideas and projects for children with challenges including special needs, acute illness, or chronic disabilities. Reading more and more about this, I think this is next to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. This is likely our one of those really cool shots where we check a lot of boxes here. There was a few others that we did get rolled out on, and by a few, probably 4 or 5 of some of the Dr. Scholl Foundation, for example, was we didn't have enough year-over-year net income, so it looks like it was more targeted towards other corporations that were attempting to start some projects there. A few other foundations that I'm tracking and I'm waiting some initial responses on. So Paul B. Greeton and Beryl S. Greeton Foundation, Henry A. Quinn, and then just sort of going back through a few of the initial explorations for some of the feelers that I haven't gotten a response to as of yet. Organizations we've worked with in the past, like Red Hat and Comcast. Also need to dive a little bit deeper into some of the work we've done in the past with the Hands of Gratitude program. That's one that, a couple of months back, John had advised me on it. It looks like they basically set up with Hands of Gratitude and e-NABLE. There was a document attached of basically setting up some manner of monetary project for a local institution, such as a school, where it was like $1,500 logistics fee going to e-NABLE there. So we've got a few routes. But again, the intention is to always keep multiple irons in the fire for when these stick. We're actively crawling for new funding opportunities every week. We've got our eyes on this. Couple of things we're noticing in the grant, and this would be an ask to the community here. Particularly for innovating worthy projects, letters of endorsement are optional. But and I put a bug in John's ear, so Jeremy, I'll send you a summary as well if you have any of those available. But any manner of organization, it can be one of the folks that we helped. But there's optional sections in a couple of these for letters of endorsement. It could be just storytelling from whoever received the devices themselves or another organization we've worked with in the past. I think that's going to tip us over the edge of a decision point. Likewise, any of our favorite or top press publications, we've got plenty out there that I'm crawling through, but I'm noticing there's a couple of places out there where they have the opportunity to send links there. One of the other things, if we want one of those pie in the sky large scale funding opportunities, many of those come with the intention of research, with the intention of producing something like a white paper, similar to like a peer reviewed article. So a very specific need with a specific outcome, and then the hard part is monitoring the results for efficacy, and with the intention of being able to reproduce that and drive some manner of best practice. So if we have something like a university setting or a high school setting out there that is willing to undergo a very specific project driven towards research, and John's given me a name that I can reach out to, but there we're talking larger scale funding. So that's more on the federal grant level. There are some other smaller research-based opportunities from more of your private foundations, but your big ones are the National Science Foundation and the Department of Health and Human Services, where we've got till probably about July to get some things together, which those processes of applying are fairly labor intensive as well. And then just for everyone's awareness, anytime we're going in and applying for these foundations, they're the basic ask is, well, what are you using this money for? So our main goals here with the fundraising is increasing our digital awareness so we can target or better outreach to potential recipients for our devices, hosting for our e-NABLE hub. And John actually had a really good idea of using some of the money raised to be able to track measurable outcomes and results based on our devices, because all of that's going to help with more of your research, further grant funding, And it's a common issue in the nonprofit in the nonprofit network space. So lots of irons in the fire, and I mean it's a really good time of year to be seeking funding or gearing up to seek, since it's the new year and most folks are posting their updated deadlines.
Awesome. Jason, I've got a bunch of questions. So I guess I'll be starting off with more of an observation. I think that I think there are a lot of opportunities just based on the conversations that you and I have had in looking at where these potential sources of funding are coming from. I think that I think e-NABLE as a network would benefit from having more of a focus, or if more of what e-NABLE was the application of such funds, because as it is, we exist pretty well without a major funding source. Obviously, we've got to keep the lights on. We've got a small bank. No offense, we have a relatively small bank to manage. We have Sarah. Obviously, we have our contract. We have the funding going to a couple of other sources. But I think the question that we may need to ask is, in seeking these funds, are we looking at a sort of philosophical tide change in terms of like how we are utilizing funding? And if so, can we as a group here lead some of those discussions to talk about how we can better communicate to these sources of funding the sort of magnitude of impact that we have the potential to move into by acquiring those kinds of funds? I will say, putting my cards on the table, I think that we would benefit ourselves and better achieve what it is we're seeking out to do here as a community by having a more robust bank, having the ability to fund chapters that can't fund themselves, having the ability to reimburse people, for example, for the devices if they're unable to do so on their own. I think there are any number of ways that we could justify seeking funding just to support the kinds of activities that we do today. But I think that there are all kinds of things that we could do that I haven't thought of if we had the capacity to do so. And I don't want to monopolize the conversation there. I'd love to get Jeremy's and Sarah's and Elliot's feedback on that too. But any thoughts about how we can better communicate and what we might actually do with an increased funding source if that were something Jason is successful in pursuing?
I'd say particularly if one of these larger scale ones land.
Adam, you and I have talked about this before. I mean, I think there's two priorities. One is getting the new matching platform up and running, which is not only intended to be a matching platform, but it is intended to be sort of the primary landing page for communicating the messaging of e-NABLE and letting the world know who we are and what we do and how you can get involved. And that's where e-NABLE.org would be pointed, and over time, hopefully building our SEO towards that page. And then tied in with that, outreach, getting the word out there, digital marketing campaigns, getting the word out, not to the volunteer community, which I think we've done very well with over the last decade, but getting the word out to the limb different community, to the people that could actually benefit from our help, and to the people that we would like to partner with, medical community and partner organizations. So those are the two key areas to me that I think would have the biggest impact, would be getting that new site up and running. I mean, the hub is great, but the hub is more of a social platform for interacting and asking questions and collaborating. But as far as just a homepage for e-NABLE, we don't really have that done right. We need just, the landing page that clearly conveys who and what we are and how you can either get help or get involved, and tied in with that, the matching capability. And then that gives us the vehicle for that outreach to, we need somewhere to point people when we're doing all that outreach. So I think those go hand in hand.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that those are obviously step one things that we can do to just make people aware of e-NABLE's existence and demonstrate the purpose and utility of the community's efforts. I think that there's a thing in the nonprofit world that people want the money they give to have a tangible outcome for the community they want to give to. And it's less exciting to say, I'm going to give this money to this organization because it will allow them to, make improvements to their website, or allow them to attend conferences, or allow them to improve their SEO. Those things are less sort of viscerally rewarding than like a picture of a kid holding a prosthetic hand. And that's maybe a little bit callous, but I mean, that's a big motivator for people, is to see that, giving something is going directly to a recipient. And flip side of that, I think that there is a lot of negative emotion around the idea of funding to an organization not going to recipients. Even though in order for the organization to exist, it has to have some level of infrastructure in order to assist recipients.
Well, especially as an unstructured organization like us,
right?
We have no way of getting those recipients if we don't have.
We don't have a board. We don't have. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think the challenge that I'm having, and I think Jason is handling this very well. I've read the applications he's sending out. They're very compelling, very well written. But I think it's difficult when we don't have a sort of unifying mission, and we don't have a clear idea about where this money will go. I think that if we could sort of as a group decide on that, and if we can come to land on messaging that clearly articulates what the value of the receipt of these funds will bring, not only to this sort of gangly non-linear network that we find ourselves in, but also that this gangly non-uniform network is uniquely positioned to help an enormous number of people with just a little bit of assistance from people outside of it. So that's kind of what I've been struggling with the last month, more than the last few months, trying to articulate that in a way that's compelling to potential funding sources. And I haven't landed on it yet. So I guess this is my clarion call to this group and anyone watching this stream, that if you would like to connect on this, if you have a communications background, or if you have some pretty clear ideas about how this kind of messaging could be framed, I think that could be very impactful to Jason's efforts and to our broader efforts to seek additional sources. So
well said, Adam. I appreciate that. That is, it's kind of dancing around that issue of the kind of the tangible impact, especially since our devices are, they're community funded, right? So it's not. Certainly there's the opportunity to establish some manner of fund that that can go towards providing the materials for these devices, but typically it's not like, hey, for $100 we can help X amount of people. So it's it's some of those tangible aspects that are there's enough wiggle room in the application process right now that we kind of dance around it, but if pressed,
Yeah, I know you thrive in that sort of gray space too. So but I think that just occurred to me, and not for the first time, but to say here now, is that a very large percentage of our community members are people who work in the education space, whose targets are not necessarily recipients of devices, but rather students who are learning what it means to engage in compassionate engineering and to engage in sort of STEM projects with a social purpose. I know that to people like Eric and Ian Roy and others that, and to our friends in California and Canada and all over the US and elsewhere who are leading groups of high school kids and college kids in these exercises with the idea that you can use these sort of consumer level products to affect some kind of social change on an individual and on a community level. I think that's powerful, and I think that there is the potential for attracting donors just in that space without even considering the existence of a recipient of a device. But again, I think that because our model is the expectation that groups and chapters are funding themselves, that cuts us out from saying, hey, this funding will go to support these kinds of chapters. I think that a very modest tweak, like we support chapters who are unable to supply their own printers or unable to supply their own filaments. I think that in itself is a really great application of funding. But not to beat a dead horse, but we just need to kind of get together and decide these are the targets, these are the kinds of things that generally our community would like to support, and get more of a culture of seeking to support that kind of activity in pursuit of the ongoing relevance of e-NABLE as an organization. But I'm yammering, so I'll
no, especially if it's like a fresh start in a community, because then you can add, some hard numbers to it. Hey, we need this printer, this software. It could even be this space, so we can help out this particular underserved community. So if there's a project out there like that, where that can be something that e-NABLE Rochester can fund 100% and establish basically a brand new local makerspace. Those are the kind of hard numbers that that I think would make for a good story to tell too.
Yeah, and I think that our recent partnerships with state-assisted technology programs really expands what those kinds of makerspaces can do. Even though historically our focus in the non-medical prosthetic space, we can now pretty clearly say that we have a number of chapters who just do assistive devices. I'm working with a speech pathologist who is in the state AT program down in Texas. And she's really interested in making e-NABLE kind of a one-stop shop for communication AT, assistive technology. And I think that there's a lot of potential there for bringing in lots more people, making the work that this community does a little bit more accessible to a larger number of folks, and also raising our own profile to kind of make that positive feedback loop keep churning. But sorry, I'm looking at the chat now. Thanks, Elliot. Thanks, Jason. Okay. That's great. Okay, cool. Alrighty, I think I've been on that long enough. I don't think there's anything else that I needed to go over today. We got the DORA report out. I think we're set. Does anyone have any topics that they would like to raise? Any points of discussion? We're barreling toward the end of the year. I'm looking at my calendar now, and this next month I know is going to go up in a puff of smoke before I know it. But is there anything that you all would like to add to the agenda, either for next time or just as a point of interest? Anything that has been buzzing around your bonnet?
Not here.
Not right now, but I'll let you know if I think of anything.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, thank you all for your time. Sorry that I got on my soapbox for quite so long. But we'll meet again in 2 weeks, and if we don't see you there, enjoy your holidays, be safe, and we will see you in 2024.
All right. Bye all.
Bye.